So since we have a panel with the banker, with the integrator, with the industry, with the agriculture industry, and with, again, the business processes, so one question that I would like to ask and bind this panel together. So we are having, how do you see the harmonization, the amalgamation of IoT, ML, spatial computing coming together, and geospatial data coming together on one platform? And if you could represent and talk about one case study or some unique example which has benefited the business or the processes or any kind of turnaround, if you would like to highlight. So, Andre?
Yes, I might start. One of the key challenges from our perspective in banking, we see clearly the opportunity coming from the beginning. We see that the geospatial data is neutral, it's immutable, and that it's a promising opportunity for us to use that, for example, for monitoring, reporting, and validation, MRV, digital MRV. But on the other side, I come from a supervisor, policymaker, so we need to really trust the data and to have official standard data. And that's in that particular point, harmonization, standardization, to really have one single only benchmark of satellite data would convince my people in the central bank to really use it. For example, putting the example that you asked for in climate-related data, if I want to do some calculations with flood risk or wildfires risk, it's a little bit challenging for economists to know that you can parameterize everything and that the results depends on the user.
Yes.
This contrasts with our traditional use of data that is standard, official statistics, and it's, that is for sure immutable for us. So we see the opportunity of the neutrality comes from satellites. Nobody can challenge that, but we still look forward to a point where we have a unified platform where we have to look at. That would really make a leap for us as a user of this kind of data.
Very well. Kanti?
Interesting when we talk about harmonization. So, if we take a step back and we look at spatial computing, spatial computing generates its data from a variety of sources. It could be a simple AR, VR sources, or it could be the IoT data, or it could be a variety of other real-time data out there in the field. And then when you think about harmonizing that data with geospatial data and applying it to business enterprises, the first step is really to recognize what are the challenges when you try to harmonize this data, and then you look at a use case of how possibly you solve those challenges. Let's pick up an example of autonomous cars, right? And I think in that sector, you're trying to harmonize the data which is coming from the real world with your foundational geospatial data. And when you are doing that, and you are building out the algorithms in the back for autonomous car to drive, one of the way for harmonizing is use of AI ML, which can do a first pass and detect the outliers and the failure points and all of that. But this is where the human in the loop and a system integrator like us comes into the picture, where you need to analyze where the algorithms are depicting failure points, attribute it to the right point, where it could lead to a car failure while it's in the field, and then lead it to the right product groups with our clients. So this use case is something what we've seen with multiple autonomous car companies, where you have to harmonize the data, at the same time have a technology and human-in-the-loop intervention to make sense of all of this.
Michael, what do you have to say? Yeah,
I'll follow up, because certainly TomTom, one of our big areas is to advance in mapping for autonomous driving. So all of what you speak to rings true. Where we struggle as an industry, and I think it's not unique to autonomous driving or to any individual in the room, is this concept of the harmonization of data, or how do we bring this data together in a better way. And I think everybody's aware of this digital twin concept, but what we don't need is everyone in this room building their own digital twin. Because if everybody is having their own digital twin, then we have to be able to conflate data from one digital twin to another, and it's extremely expensive. I'll just give you an anecdote from one of the larger tech companies that we partner with. They said they pay 3x cost to conflate the data than they do to just pay for the data itself. And this is the industry tax that we're all paying to be able to conflate these data between these different sources. And so it's a problem because it's costly. It becomes a bigger problem as we're going to real time and having to be able to advance more quickly the results of what we find in the world as it changes, and get that into the map and into the customer's hands, because you don't have the processing time to deal with all of that mapping between different location or different maps. And so at the end of the day, like, stay for the next talk, which is the Overture Maps Foundation, which is Amazon, Microsoft, TomTom, and Meta founded it. Esri and a number of other top tech companies and geospatial companies are involved in it. And they're basically trying to standardize on a digital twin. And I think it's a really important concept for the industry. We have to overcome it, or we're going to continue to be blocked.
Some your views?
For our company, agricultures, right, we primarily are technology user, and having all this integrated into one usable data, because we operate from upstream-wise 4 different countries. Our downstream operation is about 13 countries. Different countries uses different guidelines, different SOPs, right? From the very basic land title maps to where we operate disclosure of climatic risks for bank interest rates, down to a crazy idea of us, my colleagues back in the company, trying to build our own autonomous navigating farm equipments, right? So we decided to walk this path because it's really hard to get a one-stop center to provide all the technologies that we require. So at times we felt that we are still going in a circle, trying to seek for the perfect solutions. And it's been almost 5 years journey for us. And I still can't see the light, so we are still trying hard. Yep.
Didi, your view on this?
Yeah, so while I completely agree with all of my colleagues, the challenges which we have faced on the specific use cases, I would say, are 3. One is interoperability. Second is actually scalability. Some of the sensors which we are talking, IoT sensors and all of that, scaling them. And the third, I would say, to comply with government regulations, you need the PII masking and all of those information things. So now, if I jump to a specific use case where we are talking about vegetation management in a utility, which I was going to explain a little bit more. In that, we actually are working not only from the collections perspective, but when we are trying to do amalgamation of all the layers of data, which is coming right from satellite all the way to the ground, that is one challenge, which is interoperability between the different systems, which are different camera owners. That is one. The second, which we actually deal on the downstream side, is we have to take this data and work with enterprise systems like SAPs and to create work orders for the people and all of that. So that is another level of automation where you need the positional accuracy, and then you go third level where the field worker actually has to go into the field and you need to track his or her motions and see if he has a fall, if he's safe, all of that. So we need to build entire stack as an integrator to drive these type of use cases.
So, Andre, coming back to you. So, we have seen all across globe that BFSI sector, they are the first mover in adoption of technologies. And especially when it comes on to the space data that we're talking, or we're talking about geospatial technologies, or we are talking about any, for that matter, technology. Reason being, what you also highlighted, for regions like climate disasters or climate change, and then you have to roll out the certain percentages of insurances or the loan debt, or you have to calculate multiple things. So from the ROI perspective, my question come on to that do you justify the investment into this sector of, technology? So what is your take on that? How do you justify, and do you think this is giving you the kind of ROI that you really look forward to?
This is a key question for us, and actually we struggle a little bit more as we are not purely business-driven. So what we do at the central banks is that we come together at a platform called the BIS Innovation Hub at Basel, the central banks of the central banks. There we do some POCs, some of experimentation, and we meet with industry players. So for us, it's more about what we said even in the previous plan of private-public partnership. So basically what we try always is to do some kind of collaboration with startups, with fintechs, or with bigger players. And what we can put some value there is trying to find the business problem, trying to identify what's the business problem and trying to work with them on how we can find some synergies. But we strongly rely on experts from this technological vertical. The tough things about how to find the collaboration. When we think about our sector, we are here to put in place some key regulations, in our case for the banking industry. So it's not always about profits, but it's more about this 5–10% of pure innovation.
Totally.
But when we try to do the experiments ourselves, we put our feet on these same examples and we find all the same problems that, the innovative part is the smallest one, and we have to go into the harmonization and to tackle those problems.
So innovation and profit can go linear also, they can go parallel also. So my question is, because ROI is a very broader term, so for some people it's profit. For some, are you really able to tackle to that sector, to that problem, to that loans, or to that, the debts being given? So probably, but you have answered it, that collaboration more that you're seeking out here, the synergies more you're seeking out.
What I would call profit is a very long-term metric.
Yes.
It's about financial stability, it's about supervision, it's about helping financial institutions to stay sound and safe. So in that sense, my profits for my organization would be very long perspective, but we have to find a way to collaborate with an ecosystem of startups that have defined it perfectly beforehand, that you are small, purely R&D driven, and we have to find a way to work with you, smaller companies, we as big financial regulators.
Thank you. To Mr. Kanti, so so you talked about autonomous, you talked about the spatial and digital twin, you talk about the data harmonization. I would like to quickly ask you that, where you see the biggest scaling opportunity?
I think the biggest scaling opportunity will be where you are able to bridge or justify the investment going from technology to business value. Typically, when we talk about the ROI, we typically look at it from a couple of different lenses, with whether it is from an efficiency or an effectiveness lens, which either can translate either to a cost saving or a revenue growth. Now, when you look at these different parameters, you kind of look at what is the sector where you can drive the maximum output with that. One of the use case, or one of the sectors where we see a lot of potential is and it's been explored in a lot of depth with TomTom as well, with the supply chain and the logistics industry. We like to extend it as a system integrator to the last mile, where when we combine all the spatial data which is coming through different devices and the foundational data which is there, how can we invest in developing accelerated tools which can drive around a 30–40% truck roll reduction. It can drive a cost reduction. So, and this component has a certain reusability aspect to it, as you can take it across different industries with their own supply chains and logistics. So I think in my mind, that's a big industry area where you combine spatial computing with the foundational data and build assets on top of that and drive an ROI on your business investments.
Great. Michael, I would ask you the same question, where you see the scaling opportunity the maximum.
Hopefully not to anybody's surprise, mapping, even in the private sector, is a cost for them. Unless they're a map maker, which there's not many of us around that do mapping for a business, map is a cost to their business. And so I have conversations with the public sector, the same conversations I have with the private sector is, where do I get the money to be able to do the things I need to do? And so when you're struggling to go to the private sector and go, hey, can I get some money? They're struggling themselves to get the budget because it's a cost to the business. It's not their primary business. Where we see the justification of paying the cost is when they see the impact to delivering on a given need. And I won't get into the specifics of the needs. The most significant advancement of need is in having more real-time information. And the reason for that is that the customers, because of all these devices that now have location awareness, the customers have a higher expectation of that device and its knowledge of the world around it, as well as in analytics. So we talk about AI and the advancement of AI. A big advancement is the analytics you can do with that AI based on your data, and more importantly, your data conflated with the location-based data. And so that's where we're going to see, I think, the biggest opportunities and advancements happening as we go forward.
Great. So on that note, Sim, you are from agriculture sector. Now, if I talk about the agriculture entire value chain, so it involves the procurement, it involves the supply chain management, last mile delivery, even the workforce management throughout. So out there, so what you see where it could be scaled up, it could have the, in terms of spatial integration, in terms of technology convergence, where you see which sector or which part of it, as a case study, you see a bottleneck or a challenge which could be scaled up better.
Oh, it's quite glaring for us. It's essentially the data pipeline, moving data to our end user. Like we could easily procure satellite data, for example, one of a country that we operate in, Papua New Guinea. We could have fancy analytics, but to make that data available for the people on the ground, to say that, hey, you have a 1,000 hectares of plantation currently suffered from massive floods. To make that data available to them, it's a struggle. So essentially, it is still the same, scaling the data connectivity is still the biggest bottleneck for us, and I think it will remain for the next 2-3 years. Yeah.
So, Mr. Dhananjay, Didi, so this is like a very typical line of the business processes now. So if I ask you to weave in and you tell me the scalability approach, the opportunity approach, and where you could see the more further transformation in terms of with the next age, or we are in the age of AI, but to the level up from here. So,
yeah, so while I saw the transformation of the chain, the way it was happening as a business process, and SIM actually came to closest where I would say that collect to implement, that timelines reduction is possible because every company wants to do either go what I call faster to the market or predict or and react on the predictions what are happening. And in my mind, the AI ML as well as the agentic AI both will play much longer role in shrinking this whole timeline.
So with only 1 minute remaining, and I just ask one quick question to every one of you. So what is one thing that you would like to ask, or as a thing that you would like to have it in your system, but you're still struggling and you still wanted to have it, which could be a challenge for you and an opportunity for us to actually work on it and bring it on a platform?
To me, my word here today is partnerships. So we have business problems, and this sector has the solutions. So we aim to find partnerships with private sector to really tackle the opportunity of the green transition and the sustainability, where satellite data it's cornerstone for us. So for me, one word would be partnerships.
I think I'll echo that. It's more about the collaboration in the ecosystems that this forum provides the opportunity where between all of the different stakeholders, we could find that ecosystem, because it's pretty difficult to say any one company or institution can solve all of this on its own. So that's the biggest aspect which we're looking here.
Fully agreed. Stop making digital twins. Use a singular digital twin. Kill digital twins. Find the one digital twin. There's the next talk is on what the private industry thinks might be the singular digital twin. I think that's what we need to work to as an industry. If we don't get that solved, we're going to still struggle as an industry to innovate and advance.
Sim?
Same. Partnerships, scalable solutions is very important for us, that the tech provided must be across our operational regions. Yeah.
So I would say that standardization and collaboration, that is what I would recommend, that is the opportunity for all of us here, and then collaborate together.
Right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to the audience.